Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is Maria, but if this happens to be your first time visiting, welcome to Siempre Infinito's DIY. So happy you chose to stop by today. Today I want to share with you how I was inspired by this little piece that I came across. And with all of that being said, let's begin. So here I have a smooth foam, and piece of foam I just got it from my packaging. I traced out a circle and I used my electric foam cutting tool just to cut the circle out, and then I wanted it to be flat as well, because since I'm going to put her, or in this case a witch, on top of it, I want to make sure that it will not tip over. Then I got some clay here. As you can see, I'm going to use a lot of different colors of clay, and I just rolled out 2 strips. If you do remember the original piece, it's a lollipop that she's going to be sitting on top of, and it's shaped of a candy corn colors. So like I said, I just went ahead and grabbed 2 strips and start rolling them out. And then I did not want it to use a lot of clay to cover the entire foam, but unfortunately I actually wind up doing just that. So here I have some that are already pre-made, and I did notice that one of them I really didn't like how it looked, plus also because one of the foams clays that I'm using, it was way too sticky. It wasn't just not doing it for me, I was having a hard time, so I had to redo it again. I'm not gonna throw that other piece away, I'm still gonna use that, but in a different project. So here all I'm doing now is I'm trying to get it flat, because that is going to be covering the not on the sides, but on the going all the way around on the edge, I guess. You'll see in a minute. And because of my clays are being soft, I don't really necessarily have to use glue. You can if you choose to, that is your option, but I chose not to, at least not right now. I will be using glue later because I have no other choice, but here I didn't really have to, because like I stated, both clay, all the clay was still soft and it could just hold on itself. So once I had my little wheel going on, meant to say lollipop, then I got a stick and I use a straw and I stick that on the side. That I did glue down because I didn't want to take any chances. So now I'm going to be doing is her head / face. And what I'm doing here is I'm trying to make sure that she is going to be the right size for the clay. I mean for the broom / lollipop here. So I did not get really measurements, and I do apologize for that, but really it depends on you on how big you want yours to be. So what I was just doing is just making sure that everything would be the accurate size for the lollipop. So to make the face, all I did is just grab a piece of flash clay, and I just made a circle and made sure that I with the palms of my hand, I try to roll out all of the lines in there, and then I use these tools to make her eyes and her little nose. Oh, it's dropping stuff here. And then I use a tool. I rolled out almost what looks to be like I don't know, I guess you can say almost like a sprinkle, and then just use my tool to try to square it off on the bottom, almost making like a triangle shape, if that makes any sense, for her nose. And here she is. Now I'm going to be making her hair, and her eyes, as you can see, they are black, but I will be changing that later. And I'll show you that later. And it's just really easy that the way I made her eyes, I used 2 different colors, which is white and black. I made sure that each of the little circles one was smaller than the other, so it would have been the eye, the pupil, so you'll see in just a minute. And that I did not record. I don't know why I didn't do that part. Here is just her hair. I did wind up cutting it a little bit more smaller because I did notice it was a little bit too big. And it was really easy, you know. I wanted it to go all the way long. I was going to do it shorter, but I just chose to keep it long. And then on the top, where I'm doing right now, I'm just doing like a little V shape, and that's going to be obviously the front of her, what's going to go on the front of her face. And as here you saw that now it's a little smaller, and again, because the clay is still soft, I did not necessarily have to use glue for this because it'll stick on its own. And just keep in mind that when you're doing this, or whenever you're putting two different colors together, that you want them to be exactly where you're going to place them, because once they touch, that's it. You cannot take it, you cannot pull them apart without not leaving some behind or putting a dent, which I will show you in a minute. I was holding on to her face for too tight, I guess, and not realizing that I actually almost put a little dent in there. But I tried to see if I could smooth it out, and I just stopped, you know, doing anything to it, and it eventually did disappear. So if that does happen to you, try not to press first too hard when you're holding your piece, and just leave it alone. If you just like did it, you know, and then you noticed it right away, just leave it alone. It'll eventually just work itself way back, you know, out to the shape that you originally had it in. And I don't know if you'll be able to see in a minute where I'll show you that I was holding on to her face for too hard or whatever. So now I'm just gonna use my flexible knife. As you can see, the little dent there. And all I did with the flexible knife was just make little lines on her face, on her hair, you know, try to make it look a little bit more realistic. And these are the ears. I grabbed two little dots, and then I just put them on the side, and I use that too to try to make it like that dent in our ear, you know. And this is really how easy it was to make her face, you know. And here she is. I'm still learning, you know, and it comes to her mouth, so you know, give me some time. So, but anyway, but I still like how it all came out, you know, with her face and all have you. I mean, what have you? I'm sorry. So now I'm going to be making is her body. So I use this cookie shape, which is a candy corn, and these packs. Well, this pack I got it from, I think was off of Amazon, if I'm correct. And 3 comes in a pack, and I used the largest one. And also, when I made this is going to be the front of her body, which is going to be part of the dress. And again, the reason I had the lollipop next to me, and a lot of times when I'm ever making a project that I'm going to make little people and what have you, I want to make sure that the body is all going to fit and it's all going to be the same. And I am so wrong. I am not making her body. I just realized that I am actually making her hat. I don't know why I said her body, but this is the way I made the hat. And I am using I believe it was 3.2 inches cookie cutter. I will add the correct information in there for you, but this is how I made her hat. And I am also making sure that her hat, when I place it on her, it's not going to be flat. If not, it's going to be able to fit in there, so you won't see it, you know, like flat. And I can able to curve the edge of the hat, if that makes any sense. Now I did use one size, and then I realized it was way too big, and I went in and I used a smaller size. I should have flipped that over, but I'm fine with that, you know, because you'll be able to see that in a minute. But you know, I just wind up later covering it up, because I did put like a little border around her hat that did wind up covering that up. And when here with the hat, all I did, obviously, I just folded it in half, and then I cut the bottom to try to make it flat. So when I place it on top of the round piece that I cut, it will sit on there flat. And I wanted her hat not to be straight. I try to make it like a little crooked, where, you know, it's a little benty. You can make yours however you want. You can see how mine goes almost like in a little curve. So then I'm just, as you saw how I added there another strip. And I mean, this is so easy to make, you know. It took me a little longer to make it, and I'm going to be honest with you, because obviously I didn't know what I was doing. So I had to keep looking at the inspirational piece and then try to come in and do that, you know, and then try to make sure that they were all the same size, that everything was going to fit together because of the size that I went to when I chose to go with when it came to her lollipop broom. I wanted to make sure that she was going to be the right size and not be either too small or too big. So it really depends on you on how big you want to make yours. Just like I said, you know, as you saw there, I'm always just, you know, holding it and trying to visualize, you know, that's her body right there. You know, how long do I want her legs to be, and or her and her arms and what have you. So the body, as you see right there on the side of the screen, that was just like, I used again that same cookie cutter, and I just made a teardrop, I guess, or pear-shaped type of body for her. And then this is going to be the front of the dress. I'm only going to do the front. I'm not going to do the back, because the back, since I'm adding a cape on her, I don't really have to do the back. You know, you're not even going to be able to see it. So again, you know, as you can see, I'm using the lollipop, and I'm using her head, and I'm making sure that her body's going to be the right size and not be too big and not too little. And this is why it took me a little long to do this, you know, only because of that. You know, I have done in the past others, and that either the body's too big or it's not big enough, you know. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, I did love how it came out. I love that it challenged me, but I was okay with that because I love a challenge. So when it comes to the arms, the same color again, rolled out 2 strips, and the arms, I wanted them to be bent, you know, because I wanted her to hold on to the stick of the lollipop, but the clay was just not having it, you know. And I didn't want them to get stuck together also, because they kept falling back. So what I wind up doing, because I had to let it dry a little bit, I put a piece of wax paper or parchment paper, just so it will not get stuck to the body part, because I did wind up changing it a little bit. And I wanted her, if I would have made her lean a little bit forward to where she would have been grabbing the stick, she would have been practically almost falling off. So if not almost leaning to where it looked like she would be sleeping instead of riding her broom. So I chose to add something else there. And these are her hands that I'm making, and it's just making a little teardrop, and then going in with the scissors and just making sure not to cut my fingers. And then all I did was mark them. Now for the thumbs, I did make it a little bit further out, but they actually, once it dries up, they wind up getting like, I guess, shrinking, and then they just wind up coming back close. They closed a little bit, but that was fine. I didn't care for that. If you hear thunder, guys, it's hard for me not to record with any thunder not being in this audio, because, well, it's thundering. You know, anyway, so let's move on. So, you know, once I attached the arms, and it was like, I already knew I did not have to worry about it was gonna be too small or too big or what have you. Now, when I added her head, I did put her on a stick, or put her head on the stick, because I wanted the stick to go all the way through the body so I could hold it. And as you can see right there where the hand is touching her bottom of her dress, that's when I went in later, when I had to let her sit and dry, was to make sure that it would not get stuck to her body. Pressing this into her head, you know, and I did add a little neck. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that, because there was going to be somewhat of a gap, and I didn't want to show for you to see that gap. And this is how she's coming out, you know. She's really looking adorable. I really love that, how it's all coming up. So the same way that I cut the dress, the front of the dress, is the same exact way that I did her cape. The only difference is that with the cape in the front, I added a strip going across, because I want to add like 2 little bows, but I wind up going another route instead. But you know, there's the piece of paper that I told you I didn't want that to get stuck Now, because also the clay is way too soft, it became a little challenging when it came to her legs, and that was because it was hard for me to position them the way I wanted to them. You know, where I wanted them to be bent, they just were lapping over. And when it came to the boot, all I did was, as you can see, roll out a piece of clay and then just try to shape the letter L. And at the end, I was just trying to make that pointy where I could make it go up. And here I'm using this too, and I made a little hole in there because that's where I wanted to place her leg in there. And of course, again, I had to let it dry as much as I could, so I could go in later with my spray, and the clear acrylic spray is what I used. I'm sorry, it's a clear acrylic sealer is what I use, and that's just to prevent it from cracking any further, because I did notice some. And when I started noticing some cracks is when I was letting it sit there to dry. I guess I was handling it too much that it started cracking. And normally I like to add my spray after I'm done with the entire piece, and I think that that's what happened because I let it dry overnight and then went in after I was completely dry to spray it down. Well, I was not able to avoid those little cracks in there, but you will see in a minute that on the piece supposed to be her dress, at the ends is where I start noticing like a lot of little cracks. But again, I went in, added a black strip, you know, around that to try to give it like a border, and I no longer see those cracks because I covered it up. All right, so I will show you in just a minute, but again, I guess because it's my first time using this amount of clay, that takes a little bit longer to dry versus the Bose clay, but either way, you know, it's still good. I'm still learning, you know, but and here she is. I will show you just in a minute the border that I added. I'm just showing you here the cracks that I found the next day. And at the end of the day, you know, I still love how she came out. Here is a closer look, and this is a pumpkin that I gave her, you know, to hold because I didn't want her to lean, like making her look like she was sleeping. Anyway, my friend, as you can see, this is the end of the video. Thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate every single one of you, and until the next time, stay safe, be kind, bye.